All right, Teak, there was a thought that because Ben said, yeah, I'll slice off some money to make it manageable here for the Steelers, that it was all good and that they would slice off some money and that Big Ben would be under center week 1, 2021 season. Mm-hmm. Well, I don't know if that's necessarily going to be the case. Here's a quote from their GM Colbert. He said, as we sit here today, Ben's a member of the Steelers. As we sit here today. Wow. Quote continues, he reiterated to us that he wants to continue to play, and we told him, quite frankly, we have to look at this current situation. With Ben's current cap number, some adjustment will have to be made. Here's my interpretation of that. While you can extrapolate, if you want to, that the door is ajar from the Steelers' end, that they could be greasing the skids to bounce and Ben, I don't see it that way because I don't think there's a better plan B.
No.
I think what they're doing is they're laying it on thick to give the presentation to Ben that, you know what, we could move on from you. So what you thought you were going to slice, you're probably going to have to slice a lot more.
Yeah.
Makes sense?
Yeah, it does. But I think at this point, because of how they did a 2-year extension in April of 2019. I'm looking at the contract now, BT. It was worth $68 million with a $37.5 million signing bonus, guaranteed at signing, and the signing bonus was 44 or something like that. It totaled out like that. So their cap hit for last year was manageable. It was easy, actually. $23.7 million for a quarterback. That's stealing.
That's good.
Absolutely stealing. This year, it's 41. And so what he's talking about, the general manager, is how massively heavy this deal is because his base salary, along with the prorated portion of the signing bonus, along with a roster bonus that's obviously paid at the beginning of March or middle of March, as we talk about the league year.
Yeah. March 17th, first day.
How many?
Or 19th. Well, 17th or 19th?
I think it's 17th.
So it is 17th, yeah.
That's 3 weeks away. So they got to figure out a way, basically, BT, to that $19 million between his base salary and his roster bonus have to find a way to go away or get smaller.
Well, how do you do that?
You extend them. You extend it for a year, and
extend them?
Yeah, but you do it in a way that, I mean, this is where the New Orleans Saints got in trouble with Drew Brees.
Yeah.
Like they kept extending. They kept adding, we're going to 2 years here.
Eventually you got to pay for it.
Exactly. Eventually you got to pay for it, and you just hope that he retires. And that's what happened with Drew Brees, at least that's what we think. Mm-hmm. He retired. He's retiring, restructured his whole contract track, so it basically goes down to essentially nothing, and allows him to walk away and the team to save some money. And so I don't think that's going to happen because I think Big Ben still thinks he can play and wants to play.
Yeah,
but
he can still play.
This. I don't think it's going to get ugly. It's just going to get a little bit complicated.
Let me ask you
financially.
Let me ask you this: there's got to be something in place to guard against this, but maybe is there a loophole? This might sound ridiculous, but if Ben comes out tomorrow and says, "I retire, I'm done," like Andrew Luck did.
Yeah.
Right. So the Colts still have Andrew Luck's rights. They retained his rights.
Yep.
If Ben did the same and actually filed the paperwork, and then in July says, you know what, I've had a change of heart, I want to come back and play. He retired, which temporarily addresses what you talked like with Drew.
Yeah.
If Drew retires, so theoretically, wouldn't it accomplish the same thing in terms of deleting that big money elephant?
No, because it just puts you on hold. It puts the contract on hold until you come back.
Well, okay. What if the Steelers cut him? What if they have a side deal and they say, all right, Ben, here's what we're going to do. We know that you want to play, and we know at this point you're still our best option. Financially, it's untenable, but we've got to do something. We're going to cut you.
Yeah.
We're going to cut you. And then you give us your word that you won't sign with anybody else, and no, I'm serious.
I mean, theoretically, you could do that, I guess. I don't know if we've ever seen that. That's the loophole, right? Is to cut the guy, but that accelerates the remaining portion of his signing bonus to this year's cap. So all of a sudden, $22.5 million hits the cap. So even if he's not, when you cut him, you're paying $22.5 million to the cap, even though it's not for him. And if you re-sign him, it's an entirely new cap hit. right? So I guess in theory,
What if you sign him for a relatively menial figure,
yeah,
15 mil?
You could do that. You could do that. I mean, that is
You'd
the loophole.
maybe save $4, $5, $6 million.
Yeah, I mean, technically, you're saving almost $20 million.
Production, well, yeah, I was going to say more than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the problem is, I don't know if I've ever seen that done.
Well, listen, it's the first time for everything. I mean, you got to be shady. You got to be shady. Whatever.
I believe that the competition committee would
Oh, they would object, but it would be too late.
frown.
They would have to put a new rule in place so that the Steelers would take advantage of that loophole. Other teams might not be able to.
But BT, I gotta think that that's happened.
Well, that's why
it has to have happened before.
That's why I prefaced it with there's probably a safeguard in place again. And a lot of times when this happens, it's like a slot corner. It's like a fifth or not fifth, but like a seventh offensive lineman or a fifth D back, and you cut him and he's making 3-2. You cut him, you bring him back. I don't know, 1-7. I don't know.
Yeah, you
whatever.
put him on the practice squad and
Something like that.
something like that, and you basically stash him. Right, as opposed to cutting them and letting them walk, you cut them and stash them, and then eventually you re-sign them to the active roster for a lesser salary. Yeah, I mean, that happens, but it's usually with younger players. Like, very rarely do you see it. And I don't know if at all we've seen this with a vet. But that is an interesting
But if you haven't,
I've never
think
thought
about this.
about it. I've never thought about it.
It just hit me now. If you have a relationship with the team,
Yeah.
and you trust them and they trust you, I mean, theoretically, it could work.
Yeah.
If it's, I mean, I'm sure there's more to it than I'm positioning.
Yeah.
And I'll let the capologist figure that out. But whatever the most prudent road to go down, maybe they need to do something completely unconventional and be a little slick here.
Yeah,
whatever.
Maybe. I mean, what I think will happen is really what happened with Drew Brees going into his last season. They signed going into last year in March of 2020. Drew Brees signed a contract for $50 million, a 2-year extension for $50 million. Basically, they just added on a couple of years so that the proration of the signing bonus could toll out, even though the idea was that he was going to retire. It is what it is.
This is the part of the, again, I was bashing on this the other day.
It's so convoluted. You know what I mean?
This is the perfect illumination of what I hate.
Right.
So let me get this straight. So you're going to extend the guy just to satisfy your current salary, and you have no designs of keeping him that long, or you don't. Or it's just, oh my God, it's so convoluted.
It is, but this is the control that it's not the same conversation that we were talking about, but it's similar. It's like they have control. Obviously the player can do whatever he wants. In this case, in this case of Drew Brees, it's just retire. But the owners have control of how to manage this, whereas the player just they're kind of stuck. Like if Big Ben wanted to go play someplace else, it would be really hard to get this worked out unless they traded, because now all of a sudden Big Ben his cap hit is just it's punitive for the Steelers.
Yep.
Whether you cut him or trade him. So,
yep. And remember, a couple of years ago, it would have applied similar to Detroit, but because that decreased for Stafford, it wasn't as
I think
taxing.
it was like $39 million or something.
Remember that? Because we started talking about this a couple of years ago. Not that we didn't like Stafford, but just based on the direction of Detroit.
They're not going anywhere.
They're not going anywhere, and he's not getting younger. So let me ask you this. Whether or not Ben is back, whether or not Ben takes a heavy shave with a pay cut, whether or not they skirt the rules and come up with something wacky, whatever. Let's assume for a moment that Ben is the starting quarterback in week 1. They've got to have a viable plan B, and it can't be Mason Rudolph, in my opinion. What should they do? Like, do they pull a Saints? Do they trade for Darnold and keep him there for a year?
Yeah, I think they have to go for one of these higher end draft picks who didn't quite work out.
I agree. So who are the main aside from Darnold? Who's some other good targets there?
Well, they signed Dwayne Haskins, right?
But that's right. They did sign Haskins. I forgot about. Wow, they did.
I forget what that deal was.
I forgot about that. I'm sure it was minimal.
It's definitely minimal.
I mean, if Winston signed for $1 million. We know he could play. We don't know if Haskins can play.
No, that's right.
He didn't sign for much more than that.
But here's the thing. I don't know if Haskins is even that is that answer. I think it's probably a flyer.
Yep.
We have a top 15 pick who is floating in the wind. You know what? We can get him for nothing. He cleared waivers.
Yeah.
Let's just get him for nothing and see what we can make out of him.
Smart business. Give it a shot.
But that's not a guaranteed backup, right? So you think about what the Saints did. with Jameis Winston, that's kind of like a guaranteed backup, right? If Drew Brees got hurt, now we know ultimately they went with Taysom Hill to start those 4 or 5 games without Drew Brees this year. But like if you had to go in 12 games or 13 games, you need a backup if you're a team that's competitive, like the Steelers are, just like the Saints were. You're going to go get a Jameis Winston. No different than the Raiders when they went and got Marcus Mariota, right? It's like you go get a really viable backup, not a project. I think Dwayne Haskins is a project.
Yeah, that's a good position. I would agree with that.
For the Steelers. Definitely. And so if Big Ben's not going to be the guy, I still think they need to look at an alternative.
Yes.
Now, that could be Jameis, because Jameis hasn't signed a contract
What
yet.
about if Bridgewater gets cut? What if they acquire Deshaun Watson and Texans don't want Bridgewater?
Absolutely.
If he gets cut or whatever, that could be an option.
It's got to be a guy like that.
Yeah.
Even, I'm not down on Darnold. I know he's a little bit more of a guarantee than Haskins.
Give my guy a little credit. He's better than Dwayne Haskins.
But you know what I mean? Like, there's still some doubt about what Sam Darnold can do, but at least he's played a lot and had the confidence to be the man. Like, there was confidence in the organization that he was the guy.
For sure.
And hell, I mean, the Jets still might hold on to him. We have no idea what they're going to do.
Man, I just want finality because it's driving me crazy.
Yeah.
I just want to know. I told you before, I heard that if Joe Douglas gets his way, that they will trade Sam. But there's a little split in the building. I heard that very recently.
Yep.
I would take Zach Wilson. If they're going to take a quarterback at number 2, I'm taking Zach Wilson over Fields. That's me. But I just need to know if my boy Sam is coming or going.
Yeah.
I need to know. Do I have to divorce my emotions or am I? I love the kid, but if he's not the guy, he's not the guy.
You'll find out in 3 weeks.
I know.
Because as soon as the league year starts, you know that there's going to be a lot of activity this year.
What is your gut? Is he on the team next year, Sam?
My gut is, he's on the team.
I'm leaning more towards no, partly because of what I heard, but I just get the sense that they're going to want to restart the clock because even if Sam has a pretty – and this applies – by the way, this applies to anybody that acquires Sam Darnold, not just the Jets. He's going into year 4. So you're going to have the 5th-year option, which you can always rescind. It's not a big deal. But if he has a modestly – if there's a modest uptick, whether it's with the Jets or somebody else, in performance – I mean, with the franchise be emboldened to give him that 5th-year option, which equates to he was the 3rd overall pick.
Yeah.
Which is going to equate to what, $26 million?
Yeah, I know.
If not more?
Yeah.
That's where it gets tricky with Darnold.
Unless you sign him to a non, large extension. So you sign him to an extension that's manageable, that's like a Teddy Bridgewater deal.
Which I floated a month ago for the Jets.
Yeah.
I don't know if Sam would do that. But what's the mindset of a young quarterback? They want the big money. They don't want to take a $16 million a year deal.
But does he want to go? I mean, this is where it gets interesting for Sam. Like, we're talking about this from a Jets standpoint. Like, what are the Jets going to do with their quarterback situation? Do you hang on to Sam Darnold, or do you jettison him and start over with one of these young kids that's coming out of school this year? But we haven't looked at it from a Sam Darnold standpoint. If you're Sam Darnold and you're looking at the Jets, you know how the organization has been run for the last couple of years. Yes,
horrendously.
You have a potentially great new coach in Rob Saleh. So,
love him.
That's exciting. But if you're Sam Darnold, you're saying, all right, this is my third staff and coordinator in 4 years. I'm not sure if this is good for me. And you might want to just fresh start somewhere else.
But anywhere you go, it's still going to be your 3rd staff in 4 years because you go to a different team. It's the same thing.
True, but at least there's not the stigma of being the quarterback through 3 staffs.
Yeah.
Right? Which,
But let me ask you, with stigma, doesn't that speak highly about you? If everything around you is changing,
yes,
but they keep bringing you back, isn't that saying that we think you're good?
Yes, unless people are saying you're the reason that they got fired, which nobody's saying.
I'm not saying that about Sam. No way.
Nobody's saying that about Sam.
No, he had garbage. They were a disaster around him.
There was no
disgraceful
team around him. And the coaching, we know what the coaching is. I
mean, the worst in football.
The head coach came out and said, "I failed him."
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Thanks, Coach.
I appreciate you.
Appreciate it, buddy.
Right. You wanted to get fired? Okay, great.
Hey, Sam, imagine this. I don't even want to make fun of it because it is. Well, I don't need to bag on Gase. I don't need to go there. That's the low-hanging fruit.
He did it himself,
move on.
BT.
Yeah, I hear you. But I don't need to be that guy. We move on. He's gone, and I'm sure he's a good dude, and I wish him well and all that stuff. But this just speaks to the larger, issue that. And again, I know centrally, primarily, it's Deshaun Watson. It's Carson Wentz. But there are so many other branches on this quarterback tree that are going to start falling pretty soon.
Yeah.
And none fall until Watson gets dealt.
That's right.
So you got to kind of sit and see how long that takes, which is, I'm sure, frustrating for a lot of teams, Steve.
Yep. Every team is going to sit and wait and hope that these are the quarterback-needy teams, or even a quarterback we might want to upgrade teams.
Yep.
They're going to sit and wait and not do anything until Deshaun Watson's situation is worked out or the draft comes.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
We'll
the
see.
risky thing about that, you wait 2 months for Deshaun Watson. There's only one Deshaun Watson.
That's right.
And if he's even dealt, he's going to one team. So if you wait and you're playing poker and you're waiting for that flop and you don't have great cards and you get burned, it's like, wow. All right, I kind of put all my chips in for Deshaun Watson.
Yeah.
Why am I still sitting at this table? He's on a different team.
That's right.
What do I do now?
There's no bluffing left to do. Like, you're stuck.
Oh, I'm a great bluffer.
But I'm
terrible at that game.
This situation, you're like, the flop's out. You can't even bluff. Like, they see your cards.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. All right, hey, I have a 3-7. Should I keep going? Sure. Maybe you'll get a straight. Come on, stick in. Thanks for watching. Make sure you like and subscribe, and don't forget to hit that bell to be notified when we drop fresh content.